Guys, thank you very much for listening to the Photography Bar podcast. If you enjoy the show, please make sure to support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, and you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and TikTok, as well as our Patreon, all of which will be linked in the show notes. Please leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast apps such as Spotify and Apple Podcast. And with all that said, let's head to the bar.
Hello, everyone. Well, before we get stuck into the main podcast episode, we just wanted to have a quick chat with you about the upcoming photography show at the NEC on the 16th to the 19th of March, 2024.
We do have 20% off on the entry ticket, so do have a look in our show notes for the discount code. But Cam, quickly, what's going on at the show?
Okay, well, this is the perfect place, Mark, to browse kit. There's more than 250 brands on the floor this year, so you can get your hands on kit, which is going to be absolutely great. Loads of discounts. So this is the place to get your discounts if you want to buy in a year. Plenty of live demos as well. Nikon School, Canon Spotlight, and a whole host of others as well. So this is the place to go. NEC, the 16th and 19th of March. Get your tickets, get your discount.
Well, hello, everyone. Yes, the doors are back open for the bar, and we've got a special episode today because we are joined by a special guest, Dr. Denise Maxwell. We're going to be talking to her about what she's doing at the show and also about education in the UK as well. So, yeah, looking forward to that. But before we get into it, Cam, how are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks, Mark. And well, I've been looking at the schedule for the photography show that's coming up, not that far away, only a few days away. And I've been sort of going through who's going to be there, just double checking on everything. We're going to be at the Canon stand for a while. We've got exclusive access at the Canon stand. Going to be really looking forward to that. Thank you for the Canon guys for organising that and getting in touch with us about that as well. So yeah, it's sort of full throttle for the photography show, and Denise today. It's gonna be great with Denise here with us.
Yeah, absolutely, and of course we we did our first wedding the other day, didn't we?
Oh, we did. I had to hold my camera for a whole day.
I know, it must have been a bit of a shock for you because you normally don't you?
Normally other people hold it for me. That's right.
Yeah,
I just press the button.
The camera, right, that is. But yes,
yeah, that's right.
but yeah, no. I mean, I tell you what, though, food was good, wasn't it? I mean, if that's the marker for the rest of the year, food wise, I'm going to be a happy boy.
Yeah, you did have half my steak, didn't you? Because I couldn't eat it all.
You couldn't eat it all. I mean, it was steak and it was cooked medium rare as well, which was lovely. So yes, I did enjoy that. But it was good to get back on the wedding scene. Actually, the hecticness of it, yeah, it was really cool. So, but anyway, I'm digressing. We have Denise with us, so let's get on.
Okay, so as we were saying, we've got Denise who's joined us here today. So Denise has been a full-time owner, mentor and photographer at Lensi Photography for 13 years. She started in event and portrait photography after leaving a full-time job in the NHS. And her portfolio now has expanded to cover genres including campaigns, sports, fashion, photojournalism, weddings, music, corporate, PR marketing. And she's actually also photographed some well-known people as well, Barack Obama and Usain Bolt, to name just a couple of well-known names. Denise also covers events such as London Fashion Week and the BAFTAs, and there's a client list that includes the BBC amongst others. Sounds like a dream gig here.
Yeah,
and it's not bad at all.
So Denise's work has been published in Vogue, The Independent and The Guardian, and she also guest lectures at various universities around the UK. And also recently she became a Doctor of the Arts for an honorary PhD from the University of Wolverhampton. And Denise also mentors and trains emerging photographers. So welcome, Denise. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you as well. That all sounds pretty impressive. Was that me?
Yeah, was it? Yeah.
I think a lot of people. That is a bit of a dream gig there for a lot of people. So
I think I need to go and work harder. What can I say?
That's right, yeah. So Denise, we're going to be talking about we're going to break this up into two segments today. And the first thing is about the talk, because you are a guest speaker at the forthcoming photography and video show from the 16th of 19th of March at the NEC in Birmingham, and it's a free talk, and you've got actually 4 talks. We'll give the times and the dates at the end, and based on 3 separate topics. I just wanted to talk to you about briefly about each one of these topics, and just to find out a little bit about what you're going to be talking about, and hopefully we're going to, some of the listeners will be tempted to come along and sit in on the talk. So
sure
the first one is, and I'm sure, and the first one definitely everybody will want to know is, how do you make money from photography? So Denise, I'm going to hand that over to you.
So, if I tell you a little bit about why I chose to speak on this particular topic, first of all.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, over the years, I have attended lots of workshops, as lots of photographers do, when you're working on your own self-development, etc. And one of the things that was always a problem in the earlier days for me was, well, how do you price things? How do you price things so that you earn a decent amount, so that you cover your bills, so that you make a profit, etc. And after many years having kind of got my my pricing and all my structures and everything kind of set up and working for me, a lot of people that came on my own personal workshops that I do had been people that have gone through university courses and college courses and still didn't know how to make money from their photography.
Yeah.
So the courses were very much focused on the arts, on exhibiting, on applying for funding, etc. And that's really a very small minority of photographers that make money from that particular aspect. And the photographers that I do know that follow that particular route are generally the photographers that are skint.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought there's a huge gap here, that photographers or people that want to become photographers and emerging photographers that are trying to make it need to know how they make money from their photography. What do different genres earn? What do the different types of commissions earn? What can you charge? How do you price things? How do you work out your cost of living? Your cost of doing business, all of those things. So that's kind of how the talk came about. And what I'll be sharing in the sessions is I'll be sharing a snippet of a much longer course that I do that basically goes through multiple different ways that you can earn your photography. So I look at multiple streams of income that you can earn through photography. So the talks will go through some of those streams that we can fit in the short time that we have.
I think that's really good, because one of the things that I've always said about the photography in education is that, or people that become photographers, they might be really good photographers, really talented photographers, and they won't make it as business because they have no idea how to run a business. And they almost need to do just a business course is a separate business course, almost running alongside photography, because
exactly that
marketing changes constantly. What was happening a year ago has now changed. You see things like social media and the impact of Instagram and TikTok, and that Facebook change their algorithms all the time. You've got all of these little things that are going on, and there's marketing actually never stops. And I think Mark, did we did a show, didn't we, a few weeks ago, where is it 80% of photography businesses fail in the first year? It was
something like that. It was something like that.
And the reason why they fail was basically, I think, comes down to business knowledge rather than actual photography.
Absolutely. One of the things that I always say is that some of the most talented photographers I know are no longer photographers. They're working in retail and engineering and IT because they couldn't make the business side of things work. So it is a subject that is massively lacking in the photography industry. And I think the other thing that I've found is that nobody actually wants to speak about real figures, real money. One of the things that I do, I frankly and openly speak about money. This is the type of money that photographers can charge for this type of gig. This is what I earned from this type of gig. This is my highest earning month. This is my highest earning job. So, I'm quite open and frank with those things, because I think that's what people need to be able to make it. People need to know that, that they can make their bills, that they can earn a profit, that it is a good industry to be in if you can get this side of the business correct.
I think so. And I think this is where a lot of photographers, where really we shoot because, everyone's done it, and it shoots the industry in the foot, because there's this classic thing, Denise, Mark and I always say that, somebody will approach you and they don't want to pay you for it, but it's good for your portfolio,
Oh,
and
Yeah.
and you know that
I've had a rant on LinkedIn this morning about that already.
Have
Have
you?
you? Right. And photographers have to move on from that. There are so many people that are doing work because they want to build their portfolio up, and they are doing it for, I was going to say next to nothing. They're doing it for nothing, and it's always
Yeah.
been the case. And we need to, the industry needs to be educated to say, look, it doesn't matter how much or how little experience that you've got, you still people, because you wouldn't go into a shop and say, oh, actually, can I buy this packet of sweets, but I just want to try them first because I don't know what they're like, so I'll walk away with this packet and I'll come back. Well, and as photographers, we should be saying the same thing.
And that's one of the messages that I give as well. So I give examples of how I earned from my very first gig with my Canon 450D and my very first flash. So, no matter what stage of the industry you are at, no matter what stage of your learning, your experience, etc., you can earn from photography. And that's one of the messages I share. So I do share some of my very early gigs and where I got them from and how much I was paid. And yes, some of the pay might be a bit kind of eyebrow raising right now, but for the position I was in at that time and the fact that I just started and I didn't have a lot of knowledge, and that was absolutely fine. And again, I give messages about how and when to raise your prices, because obviously that changes as your business changes, as your outgoings change, as your cost of doing business changes. So I'll give pointers and hints about all of those things as well. And as we've all kind of said, these are the things that photographers need to know. I think there is so much information out there on how to frame images, on the rule of thirds, on how to light images, all the skills that you need to actually take great photos. But I still feel there's so little information out there on all the skills you need to make your photography business work.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
And I also think that a lot of things have changed as well. I mean, when I was at university, seems more distant past now. Things we mentioned it before, things like social media, how to market. And I do wonder actually when it comes to tutoring, and I think we'll talk about this a lot more in the second segment, but do the tutors who are at these institutions actually understands that marketing has now changed massively, and that marketing itself before, like when I was at uni, it's different now. You can't get away with that stuff now. It's changed. And do these tutors actually know how to market like that, because maybe they haven't been a professional for a while? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that some of the best tutors that I come across are the tutors that are still practicing, because they still understand the current market. Whereas I do also work in some colleges and some universities where they haven't practiced for years because they've taught for years, and therefore their knowledge is outdated. But there are ways around that. This is where I think colleges and universities can bring in outside speakers that are still in the industry, that are practicing now. So there are ways around that if they have the budget and the forward thinking to think of those things and think about getting those people in to work with the students.
Awesome, great. And as we said, we're going to come on to sort of college and universities a little bit later on in the second segment. So that how do you make money from photography, I think, is going to be a fascinating talk. It doesn't matter whether you're new into the industry or whether you've been in the industry for many, many years. Things change, things move on. I think it's going to be very interesting. And that talk takes place. You're doing that talk twice. It's on the 16th and the 17th of March. Both times are the same, 11:50 to 12:20. So it's only 30 minutes. It's a lot of things to pack into that. But I think it's better like that. It's and that's going to be in the Piazza Suites, in the Masterclass Theatre. So that's going to be great. So get along to that, guys. And remember, you can get a discount on the show tickets through the show exclusively here as well. So next talk is called Behind the Lens, Denise, and that is about event photography and mastering big events through the lens, which is the description on the photography show official website. So tell us a little bit about that talk.
So that's a talk with the Amateur Photographer magazine,
Awesome.
and that is. Sorry?
I just said awesome.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said something else. And that is about how you cover big events. So there are a lot of big events that I shoot. So that might include things like the Brits, that might include big award shows, the Commonwealth Games, etc. And these are some of the events where, when I wasn't covering those, I used to wonder to myself, well, what happens in those events? How do you cover them? Like, how do you get paid from them? What happens when there's 20 photographers covering an event? How does it all work? So again, it's just about demystifying some of that process for some of the emerging photographers that are heading in that direction. I think, again, in photography, one of the things that happens is that when you're trying to get into something, there's not much help, or not many people are willing to tell you how it works, and give you a kind of roadmap into, well, this happens and this is how you earn, and etc. So some of this is about giving people that roadmap and that knowledge to say that if you are heading in this direction, this is how it works, this is how it is, these are the things that you can expect, these are the things to look out for, this is how you get in, these are the contacts. So some of those things.
And it's a really important thing to talk about as well, because event photography in general is a big income stream for photographers.
Yes.
I mean, me and Cam do a lot of graduations, for example. It's not the BAFTAs, obviously, but nevertheless, I'm sure
Graduations earn very well.
Yes,
they earn very well.
they do. They absolutely do. And I'm sure there's a lot of transferable skills between, obviously, what you've done covering things like the BAFTAs and the Commonwealth Games, like you mentioned, to things like graduations, because events, it doesn't matter what they are events.
Yes.
And as I say, they're all very transferable, very, very good earners. And not a lot of people talk about it. It's almost because it's not, I guess, seen as a glamorous side of photography, maybe, I don't know. But a lot of photographers that both me and Cam know, do things like events, graduations, all that kind of stuff. And then they also do the other stuff as well. But generally it's things like events that is actually the thing that pays your bills.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I deliver a longer course, I actually get the students to actually look at the figures of just covering one graduation ceremony, and when they add them all up, they're like it's just like an epiphany for people, just to think that something that doesn't look glamorous, that doesn't get all the likes on Instagram, etc., actually earns so well.
Yeah.
So I think it's just all great information for emerging photographers, and having more information as you're going into the industry is never going to be a bad thing. And I think that's one of the great things about the photography show, that they have so many different speakers who are speaking on so many different topics, and it's real information that's of real use to emerging photographers. So that's what I try and kind of bring in all the talks that I'm delivering.
Just a bit of a side question as well. I mean, what was your first gig? Was it in the event photography area, or was it something else?
It actually was. So my very first, in fact, I'm going to class two things as my first gig.
Okay.
My first event photography gig, I had a colleague who was an Asian wedding photographer. And back then, it was very popular to set up on-site studios at Asian weddings. So, similar to graduation, set up a background, sell on-site, etc. So I started covering all his on-site studios at his weddings, of which he had 2 every weekend. And these are weddings of 500-600 people. So
I do a lot of Indian weddings myself, so I know.
There you go. There you go. So that was my very first event photography gig. And then my other event of another type of event was a wedding. So literally I'd had my camera 2 weeks. My friend who I worked with at the time said that her friend was having a very small Muslim ceremony, and could I photograph her ceremony? And I said, I won't share with you how much I charged for that, but it definitely didn't cover my costs.
No. But that's what people are so everybody does that. I mean, I think I did it with my first gigs. You under cost, and it was only when I left uni, I mean, it's unbelievable how green I was, and I'm sure everyone in that position is exactly the same, really. And you're kind of finding your way through it. It's only when I sort of got employment as a second photographer here, or worked for another photography company there, I kind of realized, actually, I am charging pittance to what I should be charging. And of course, let's go back to what we were discussing before, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
so that's...
This is what I was just going to add, and this is why this type of education is so important, so that people can kind of start out on the right foot, which, you know, for many of us, it takes us years to kind of figure it out. And then suddenly we get that light bulb moment where we realize, actually, you know, yeah, I haven't costed in this and I haven't costed in that, and all of those things. So yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, so that talk behind the lens about event photography is on the 16th of March, and that's from 2:15 till 2:45. Another half an hour talk. Again, sit and listen in on that if you can, guys. And then the last topic that you're doing, Denise, is called going against the grain, shooting multiple genres. So tell us a little bit about that talk, and that's with in conjunction with Canon Spotlight.
Yes. So how this talk came about is that when I first started photography, I was advised by most of the professional photographers I spoke to back then that I could only make it if I focused on one or two genres and kind of worked on those genres and perfected those genres and kind of became a master of those couple of genres. I'd always kind of had a background in all of my other jobs where I'd had very varied days, where I was doing very different things on different days. So when I went into photography, I kind of wanted to have the same variation. I wanted to have the excitement of still doing different things on different days, because I know how my mind works. I know that that's what keeps me interested, excited, enthusiastic, all of those things.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of approach my photography career. And even now, I still cover lots of different genres. And I think for me, it makes me a better all-round photographer, because as you mentioned earlier, there are skills that are transferable between the genres that we probably don't see explicitly, but they are transferable. So like you said, with event photography, whether you're shooting a graduation or you're shooting a big award ceremony, it's still the same skills. You're still using the same types of photography, the same types of equipment, etc. So it's basically giving the people that attend some information on how I've made it as a multi-genre photographer, and also information that a lot of other photographers I feel don't share, where there are some photographers who will badge themselves up as, I don't know, say a music photographer, for example, or a portrait photographer. But when you know them personally, you know they're also covering lots of different things to earn their income, but they just simply don't post that on their profiles and their website. So they're also multi-genre photographers, but for whatever reason, they choose not to badge themselves up as that. So it's kind of like a message to everybody, just to show how it can work as a multi-genre photographer, how it works for me, the types of things I cover, and how that helps me in business.
You see, I think that's really good, because I was going to say, I think that's really good, because when it comes to doing multi-genre, you know, and what you were saying, Denise, was that modern marketing now says to you that if you're going to market yourself as an expert in a certain field, you know, to say, I am just a wedding photographer, I am just a product photographer, that's my specialism, I specialize in this. So you've got experts, marketing experts say that you're the leader in that particular field. Tell everyone that that's what you do, you're the best, and because that's the only thing that you actually do. And now I see marketing the way it goes, with everyone sort of saying the same thing. I specialize in this. This is what I do. This is the only thing I do. And you're right. They do anything. They do everything else as well. But they're almost, you know, and I think that could change. I think we've almost sort of gone through that I'm an expert in this field type of thing.
Yeah,
why not say I can do anything?
Yeah, I think especially post-COVID, I think that many more photographers are now talking about diversifying, and it does give me a little chuckle, because I kind of think, well, this is kind of what I've always done.
Yeah.
And now people are kind of moving towards that. So in the talk, I will talk a little bit about that, how one genre informs another genre, how it's helped me in business, how it's also helped me with clients as well. So I've got lots of examples where that has been a positive for the clients that book me. So I think that, you know, there is no one particular way of doing anything, and I'm just there to show people that this is how I've done it, and it's worked for me, and it can also work for you.
Yeah,
if that's
right.
The way that you choose to run your business.
I'm also quite interested, if I may, Cam, interested to know, because obviously our listeners, I think, will be interested to know, but how many different genres do you involve yourself in?
Oh, can you name them, and then I'll give you tips or crosses. So
okay, So
I
obviously
do.
carry
Go
on,
on,
carry on.
go
Sorry.
ahead.
Ah,
So I do music, I do festivals, I do fashion. That's both catwalk and lookbooks,
yeah.
and backstage. I do portraits, a lot of corporate work. I do campaigns. So did a huge campaign for Starling Bank a couple of years ago. I'm trying to think what else. I do weddings. What else do I do? I'd have to consult my website, but those
No, that's
those are
fine.
just
I mean,
nine that
that's
I've named.
I thought they were the sort of things because the reason I was asking that really is because I mean I'm quite similar to that. I mean I do weddings, I do portraiture, and I do there's family portraiture, and also the graduation stuff.
Mhm.
But generally, and behind the scenes, because I mean when we do graduations, it's not just the portrait stuff we do behind the scenes because the universities
Yeah.
want that as well, and all that kind of stuff. But it is, I mean. So I guess that I think the reason I'm asking is because I never really saw myself as a multi-genre photographer.
Uh-huh.
But generally, I
You
mean,
are?
I am, and
Yeah.
I think what I don't know, maybe what some people think about being multi-genre is that I take pictures of people, and I guess I count
Uh-huh.
that as one genre. Do you know what I mean? Um,
Okay.
so I do portraiture in the studio, but I also do portraiture at a wedding. I do portraiture behind the scenes. It's all kind of it's working with people. What I don't do is car photography. And I
Okay.
don't do product photography, as in things that don't move. And do you know what I mean? So it's interesting
Okay.
that actually I see myself as kind of one genre because I take pictures of people, but actually I'm not. And I think a lot of people listening to this will go, "Oh, hang on a minute, but I do all
Yeah.
those things too." So it is
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
to
And I think what it is as well is that I think the way that I look at photography is that I like to understand like lighting and shapes and
yeah.
framing and the relationship between different items in a photo.
Mm,
And I think if you apply those principles to lots of different types of genres, then you can make it work with any type of genre. So,
yeah.
for example, you mentioned product photography. I do some product photography,
Yeah.
and I find that as interesting as shooting people or events.
Mm.
So, like I say, I think all of the genres inform another genre, really.
Yeah, it's that
Great stuff.
transferable skills that we were talking about earlier. Yeah,
Yes,
interesting.
absolutely, absolutely.
Denise, Denise, can I just finish off this little segment saying, because this is in conjunction with Canon Spotlight. So how is that tied in with your talk?
I'm not sure how
Okay.
how it works from the Canon side of things. I know that they're spotlighting different photographers, and I know I've done some work with Canon over the past few years, but I'm not sure how they've chosen their photographers and how it ties in with Spotlight. So I don't know about that aspect of things.
Sure.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. No. That's great. I think you've sort of said it really there. They've highlighted you as one of the photographers, which is great. So, and that talk
Yeah.
is on 18th of March, and that's from 3 till 3:30, and that's called "Going Against the Grain: Shooting Multiple Genres." And just before we finish off in this segment, guys, we will be we're guests at the Canon stand on the Monday, and we're going to be having a walk around the Canon stand with the Canon guys and speaking to some of the people with Canon there. So we've got exclusive access there as well, and some exclusive interviews with Canon. So if you're a Canon user or thinking of using Canon, and then you might want to have a listen to that as well, and hang around also for Denise's talk. Mark, on that note, and Denise, let's grab a quick drink.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Right then. So, yes, we're still here with Dr. Denise Maxwell. So, thanks for staying with us, Denise.
Thank you for having me.
That's no problem. We thought because you are you're a guest lecturer at many universities and you're also a mentor as well. I just wanted to have a quick chat about where you think the state of arts education is in general in the UK at the moment. We hear a lot of statistics and things banded about in political spheres about how teaching hours have been reduced and funding is not there and things like that, which is all headlines. I mean, I find that statistics can be used to back up any argument really, but I
Yeah.
just thought because you're sort of in it as it were, how you felt it's going, and is the funding there, is the quality of hours and the amount of hours there, what are your thoughts on it?
I think, like much of education and like many courses, that the funding isn't there.
Yeah.
I think when I look at courses, so I studied Sandwell College for I can never remember whether it's a HNC or HND when I first started. I can never remember which one's part-time and which one's full-time. And when that course first started, and I loved my tutors, still in contact with them, you know, they were very supportive, etc. When that course first started, it was a £600 course per year, and there were field trips abroad as well as all over the country to visit exhibitions and just to experience photography in different countries, etc. So that's where it started. Now the course is a £6,000 course for the exact same course.
Wow.
Yeah. A little bit of a change.
Yeah.
And they definitely don't do international field trips anymore. There's a lot less teaching time. So many things have changed. I think also generally, I have a lot of people that I work with that have come through formal education and also informal education in terms of going on different courses with photographers. And I think that there are some absolutely fantastic courses out there, but there are also some absolutely dire courses out there. I think there are some people that are making a lot of money not teaching very much. So for example, I've worked with a young woman who's done a whole 3-year degree in photography and come out of her degree, come on a one-day course with me, and in her evaluation she said she's learned more about photography and the business side of photography in that one day than on a whole 3-year degree. That can't be right.
No, but I'm not surprised either. I mean, I think even when I was studying, and this is going to show my age a little bit, so I graduated in 2003, and you know, I kind of knew it because it was a fine art photography course, so you kind of know that it's not going to be business related as much. But I would probably say I learned more. I then went and worked for Venture for a few years, and I learned more about the business of photography through them than I did on the course. And I think whenever anybody asks me about that, and this might be an outdated opinion now, I don't know, but I've always said, well, when you leave a photography course, try and work for a photographer, try and work for maybe someone like Venture. I mean, I have my issues with that company as well, but they did teach me a lot of stuff. But yeah, to do that before going out on your own, does that make sense? Because you can.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. But even though you mentioned that your course is a fine art course, I would still say, why not? Why is the business side of things also not taught on a fine art course? Do people still not need to set up a business? Do they still not need to sell their work? Do they still not need to market? Do they still not need to get a website set up? So all of those principles are still needed, even if you go into fine art photography. So I would still say, like, you know, it's lacking in the business side of things across.
Do you reckon it's a snobbery? Do you reckon it's a snobbery at all from some of the old school sort of fine art tutors? Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. I mean, I can't say much for the fine art side of things. I work more on the photography side of things or on photojournalism courses. So I can't speak much for the fine art side of things. I think with the photographers that I work with and the photojournalists that I work with, I think part of it is simply just about not being in the industry every day, so that you do lose touch of, you know, what the issues are of how people are earning their money, of you know, just all the everyday business aspects of photography. I don't know how it works with fine art. Maybe it is, I don't know. But you know, I think that it's almost like leading people down a path to failure, because, you know, if you don't know about the business side of things, as we've already mentioned, you're not going to make it as a photographer.
Well, I suppose as well, again, just looking at how things are being taught. So I read an article by Dr. Grant Scott, who I think is a lecturer at Oxford, speaking about this in particular, about how, you know, the way that things have been taught needs to change a bit more. When I was at uni, I think the thought was you finish a uni course and then you be an apprentice with a photographer somewhere, and you know, you wait tables to earn your money, and you're basically learning and doing the job for free. That was what people were telling me. I went a different route, obviously, but I think my point is because they relied on that sort of structure of the photography industry, that they felt that they didn't need to teach the business side because then that's what they would do as an apprentice. That's the stuff they learn there. But of course, that's all changed. I mean, photographers don't really take on apprentices anymore, really, do they?
Yeah, that has changed. And also, I think when we look at how finances and people's financial situations are now as well, I don't think a lot of people can afford to be apprentices.
Yeah.
I think that more people need to be able to come out of a course and then start earning, or start earning while they're on a course.
Yeah.
One of the things that I try and teach emerging photographers is to set up their businesses while they are learning, because that's going to be the time when they have the most free time out of probably their whole career, while they're actually studying and learning. And I try and teach them that all the principles and the things that they're learning at college or at uni, to actually apply them to their businesses now. So for example, when I was studying, when we had a portrait assignment, for example, that then became the first section of my website based on portraits. So by the time I finished college, by the time I finished college, I already had a whole website set up of all the assignments that I'd done. But it was a photojournalism section, and it was a portrait section, and it was a still life section. So there's still a way of teaching it that sets people up for business, but I don't know if that's the thinking in a lot of courses.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing because again, I'll let you in. Sorry, Cam, I just want to make this point now. I'll let you in if that's all right. Because obviously, when in 2003, the thought of having my own website was just ridiculous. I didn't even have my own computer in 2003. You know what I mean? And if I was, I'm what 43 now, so I am what I'd guess a lot of tutors are. It's that sort of age, isn't it? So the thought of having your own website when you're learning, to me, seems very foreign to me because of course I couldn't do it at the time. So that's an interesting point, because people like me who would be tutoring wouldn't necessarily think about that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I hadn't even thought about that myself. I mean, I started my course in 2009, and it was a thing then. So, but I hadn't thought about it until you've just mentioned that. A lot of people, it just wouldn't click for them. Yeah.
No social media either when I was at uni.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the landscape has completely changed.
Yeah, and I've seen it change even years before you guys, because I'm talking now late 80s when I left school and then went to college, and I actually did O-level photography at school, and then I wanted to take that education further. I remember my parents saying, "Do something else," because photography, you're going to be able to make a living. And I started looking at business courses, but then I got a job within photography. And and back then it was much easier to find. There were a lot of photography jobs going back then, and I've mentioned this before, but I remember this. I've said this before many times on the show. There were two photographic job agencies in Oxford Street in London. One was called Just Photographic Agency, and I remember it was run by a lady called Justine, and somebody else. It's Just Photographic Agency, and there was another one I couldn't remember the name of. They were purely photography job agencies only, so you could find. There were loads of jobs with the industry. So
that sounds like a utopia. That does.
I know. And so I was flitting from one job to another. They'd contact me and they'd say, "This job that's come up in London, or this job that's come up in Essex, or this job that's come up in Northampton." They'd be sort of all over the place. And I'd be going from sort of one job to another. And I spent the first 3 years in my photography career was spent in the darkroom. I didn't do any photography at all. I became a darkroom technician, and and then from there I became a photographer following that, and that was the best thing for me to do, because I've always said that I was actually responsible for the end result for the client. The photographer would shoot the pictures, and it would be down to me to process, print, and then hand over the finished product. So by the time I came around to actually using a camera, I could visualize in the camera what I needed the finished result to actually look like through camera. So it made me a better photographer for that. But I was fortunate because I was going sort of from one job to another, and I never thought about working on my own, not for many years. Until sort of I got into my sort of late 20s. I thought, do you know what? I could actually set up on my own. And I picked up all this knowledge and all this experience from all different photographers. And then I did my teaching qualifications as well. Did that while I was still working, and I find now the problem is I'm not going to say that those jobs aren't there anymore. I don't think they are in the way that they were before.
It's in the same volume, they're not.
But everyone wants to work for themselves these days. Everyone's more entrepreneurial these days. So a 16-year-old now at school will say, right, okay, well, I'm going to be a photographer. I've set up my website. I've got my Instagram page. I've got this. And that's their downfall straight away, because they might be really good photographers. Do you? Because I think they might be really good photographers, but there's a real lack of experience within learning the actual industry and starting to and working with other photographers to soak up that knowledge, to soak up how photographers work, how do photographers market themselves, how do they get clients, how do they price jobs up.
See, all of that is needed, but I think there are other places to get that information from. And I think the reason why people don't think about working for agencies in the same kind of way is anybody I know that works for agencies, so a lot of the photojournalism and news agencies, all they do is complain about how little they earn. So people don't earn the same kind of living from those agencies anymore, and you hear a lot of complaining and you hear about a lot of exploitation. So I think the natural progression therefore is to set up your own business and work for yourself and do all the extra hours for yourself. And I think that a lot of the information that you've talked about in terms of getting all the information about running a business, etc., that is out there if people look hard enough, if they go to the right places, if they get mentoring from the right people. So that information is out there. But the aspect of go on.
Oh, sorry, no, sorry, you carry on.
Yeah, but I think the aspect of the marketing themselves and being able to get jobs, as we've said, is now much easier. So people can, instead of relying on an agency to say, we've got this job here, we've got this job there, people can now just post on LinkedIn or Instagram. And I know some younger people, some younger photographers that have not long started in the industry and are doing very well just from all their networking on places like LinkedIn, and obviously producing good work. So I think that the agency almost isn't needed in that kind of way, because if you can get your own jobs in, then the only aspect you need to learn is the business side of things. So I don't know if an agency is needed in the same kind of way anymore.
And if I may, I think there's a big difference as well between what's happening, like you were saying, Denise, about how people aren't, the way the pay is not very good. I think there's a couple of things there. I mean, first of all, I think there's more competition for the jobs, I guess. There's a big saturation of photographers now coming from education than when maybe Cam came out, because I think there's a big drop off back in the 80s, because maybe it's I always think it's easier to take a photograph now, but I think the standards of photography are higher than what they were maybe in the 80s. You had to deal with film and all that. That's all gone. So that is not there. You could shoot thousands and give someone 2 photographs and they'll be happy to be doing a good job. Obviously, that's not the way to do it, guys. But nevertheless, you could get away with that at the beginning, where you couldn't do that back in Cam's day, I guess. And also, you're also talking about, Denise. Sorry, Cam, for me. You're also talking, Denise, about networking and getting that information from different sources and networking. Well, in some respects, that's what Cam did in the 80s by doing that. Cam, you basically networked, didn't you?
I did.
Working for all these different places. So it's almost the same thing. It's just done in a different way.
Yeah.
I think also, can I just say on the agency that this was like it was a photography job agency. So you weren't just going to do a day's work here or there. What it was they would say, there is a job, there is a photography vacancy that's come up with this company. Okay, that's what it was. They were like a job,
so that's
a job
totally
agency.
alien to me.
It is to me as well, Denise, to be fair.
So what there was back then, and there still are now, but there's nowhere near as many. I know that for a fact. There were a lot of big studios going back 80s, 90s. There was a lot of big studios, product photographies. And a lot of them, they had their own dark rooms as well. So the whole role was very different. There were far more roles within that, from people working.
Dark rooms don't exist anymore, though, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. Okay, so they weren't agencies in the sense that we've got a job for you, it's half a day or anything. No, it wasn't like that. They were specifically saying there is a vacancy that's come up with this company, and are you interested in this job? and that's where I was. That's
Sounds
where
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was flitting and working, literally working for. I wasn't working for the agencies. I was working for different photography companies, and for some of them, I worked. Probably the shortest I worked was 3 months. The longest I stayed with somebody was probably for, I don't know, probably 2 years, no more than that.
Okay,
Before
wow,
moving on, and they would come in and say there's a job going at the BBC, and I remember this clearly because I really wanted the job and I didn't get it, and it was a TV cameraman. It was a TV cameraman. It was a trainee TV cameraman job, and I didn't get it, and that that would have taken me in a different direction. So, whenever there was a photography job going, everyone, most big studios would know that, right, okay, we're going to go to these job agencies and they'll find the best photographers and they will apply for that job. That's how it works. That's what it was.
I don't know anything about that.
So there was no, so it wasn't, there wasn't,
yeah.
So there was no exploitation or anything because you were paid you were paid a wage. And the jobs I kept getting were darkroom technician jobs, darkroom technicians. They knew that's what I did. That's how I trained. So so it just shows how the world's changed, different, and it will continue to change. In the next 10, 20 years, this conversation will change. And technology and everything else is moving at a faster rate than ever before. In fact, it's going too quick. It's moving too quick.
But again, I feel that's why diversifying and actually being a multi-genre photographer actually works in your favor, because I think that in the next 10 years there may be some genres of photography that hardly exist anymore. So just darkroom photography has disappeared. I think that, for example, product photography, I'm not sure about the future of product photography with AI, etc. So I think, to diversify is to kind of give yourself the best chances of success going forward.
We used to have, I was going to say, just the type of thing that used to, and how it's changed, was we used to, in one of the places I was working, we used to process black and white films for newspapers. So you get photographers that had come in, they'd done a story, they'd drop the film into us, we'd process it.
I've got friends that have been journalists for a while. They tell me about this.
And then somebody from the place I was working at would go and bike these images to somebody down the road, to the papers down the road, and the photographers would constantly be dropping things in. But the thing is, there was a real buzz about that. I still remember that, was being in London, and there was this everyone worked on a high. It was always, everything was 100 miles an hour. And it's gone now, that, and that's just progression. That's just how things change.
Yeah, they just wire them across straight from the camera now.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Right,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, speaking about, that's probably a good way, because I think we'll probably come to the end of this now. But a couple of things I just want to ask you, Denise, before we finish up. So a couple of questions about going forward in the future. So first of all, with education, if there was one thing that you would like to see a change in how education is, it could be how it's taught, how it's funded, whatever you think it is, what would that change be? What would you see being a real sort of eureka moment for students going into the future?
To teach a lot more about the business side of photography, and to be frank and open and transparent about it, so that people can make a real informed decision about whether or not this is the industry for them, whether or not it can fulfill their needs, whether or not they can make a career out of it. So it's that full open frankness about the business side of photography. Like I said, there are so many different places that people can go to learn how to take a photo. We have YouTube University now, and all these other online universities. But we really need more business education. So the business of photography, or creative business education, and that would be my one thing.
And in my second question, and it's I only mention this now because we kind of very, very flirtantly sort of picked up on it just a minute ago, and it is certainly a buzz subject sort of going forward as well, and what it is. But what do you think AI is going to do in education?
I don't know I'm not sure about education. I can definitely talk about my feelings about it in terms of photography.
Okay, we'll go with that. That's fine.
And I go through bouts of feeling that it's the devil. and also feeling that there are aspects of it that may help massively. So for example, you know, editing, you know, a big event where you've come out with 5,000 images or something. I think that editing capabilities are going to be a game changer for photographers. However, this again takes more people out of the industry, because there are whole people whose jobs are just editing, similar to what you were saying earlier about, you know, there were people that literally worked in the dark room. That took out a whole group of people in terms of their involvement in the photography industry. So I think it's going to have a massive negative influence on editors, but obviously photographers will benefit from that. Whereas there's other aspects of AI where I see companies talking about having programs that will, if we just look at fashion, that will create a whole campaign, shoot a whole AI fashion show, a lookbook with imaginary models, with no makeup artist, no hairstylist, no creative director. You know, you can list a whole range of people that is going to take out of large parts of the industry, and that really worries me. The other aspect that worries me is the fact that AI is using the work of photographers to train AI, but they're not getting any type of royalties or any type of payment for their work being used to train AI that's then going to take away further work from them. So I am quite worried about AI, and like I say, I go through these bouts of it's the devil or it's there to help.
No, I'm pretty much the same. I think unfortunately the genie's out the bottle though, isn't it? So
it is, but I think there are government there's government legislation, isn't it, or worldwide legislation about it only going so far because of the capabilities of it. I don't know how they can. I don't know how they can. I don't know how. I don't know
We've
how
all
they
watched Terminator.
That's exactly what I say.
I mean, I don't know how they're going to control that. But
net is on us, I'm telling you.
I guess on a positive note, you know, jobs have just changed anyway. Jobs that existed 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50, 60, 70 years ago no longer exist, but they've just been replaced by different types of jobs in more sort of technology based. So, you know, in 20, 30, 50 years, there will be jobs in the photography industry that we have no knowledge of at the moment.
Absolutely.
You know,
and I think,
so it's very interesting to see what's going to happen.
I mean, I think there will always still be a space for photography. It's just how big a space that is. It's a bit like, you could kind of compare it to how the music industry has changed. So yes, you know, we may not be playing our music on records and CDs, etc. anymore, but however, there is still a whole industry that does still kind of access music in that kind of way. It's much smaller, yes, but it's still there. So I still think there will be a place for photography. I think there'll always be a place for photography, but it's just that uncertainty about how it will change.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully, going back to education, the good sign off is that this is going to be taught to people as they're going through. You know, that this, you know, like you saying, being aware, being the not necessarily the dangers, but, you know, being upfront with this is happening. This could change. So if you want to be an editor, you know, AI could be taking half your work from you. So maybe diversify into something else.
But I think this is why again, expos like the photography show are so great, because you know, it's about bringing together all the people that have the knowledge on this and they're in the industry now, and then being able to pass that on to people that are thinking of going into the industry or are now making their start in the industry. So, you know, I think expos like this are fabulous for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we absolutely love the work they do at the photography and video show. So yeah, absolutely. Right then. Well, Denise, thank you ever so much for coming on. And
Thank you.
Coming into our photography bar. Hopefully we'll be able to bump into you at the show. I think we're there on the Monday. So it'd be great to sort of say hello and
and we'll have to get the obligatory photographer selfie.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, thank you for having me.
That's all right. And thanks, and good luck at the show. Good luck at the show, and good luck with the talks.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Right then, Cam. So what did you think to Dr. Denise Maxwell? I thought she was wicked.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was really good because, you know, the multi-genre stuff. So she's got a lot of things to talk about. You know, she's very open about what she's doing. I like the fact that she's, I think she hit the nail on the head many, many times, and I think what's lacking out there within education, I think, and how photographers want to make money and need to make money, and how do they do that? And the business aspect is just a huge thing. And as she said, she knows photographers that are brilliant photographers that just aren't in the industry anymore because because of lack of business knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, I find it interesting that it's something that you've been talking about for ages, about having the business business really in with these. I mean, I didn't get any business help during my degree. It was none of it. It was, like I said, I graduated a long time ago, 2003, because there was that sort of apprenticeship tier, wasn't there? So, the idea was you finish your education, you then become an apprentice, you wait tables, and that's how you make your money. Generally, apprenticeships, you wouldn't even get paid. Your payment was learning, and then you go off and do your own thing. But it's changed now.
I do fear for some photographers that have been in the industry for a long time, that have still got plenty of years left in the industry or want to, and they've got a lot to offer, who don't know anything else other than photography. And I fear for some of them because of the impact of social media and the amount of involvement required now on social media is in itself a full-time job. And I think a lot of people now feel maybe out of place because you've got this different generation that are coming in who have grown up with their phones, who've grown up doing selfies, who've grown up doing videos, that to them it's second nature. Whereas there are a number of photographers, a lot of photographers out there now that are having to learn that from scratch, having to embrace it, and they don't really have, they don't want to invest the time in all of that. They don't want to invest so much time in social media.
No, but then I guess that people like yourself, because I probably include you in that bracket, really,
to a certain extent.
Yeah, because I think you don't do a lot of social media yourself. You do some, but I think you pay someone else to do it, don't you? So it's always created this other industry, the social media thing. So, and I think people like yourself who've been in the industry a long time have adapted so many times, and so I don't fear for them really. What the people I fear for, and I think is what Denise was kind of alluding to at the end there with AI, is that there is a massive editing sort of industry, isn't there? I get loads of emails of people wanting to edit my work for me for a cost, and that is basically, I never really thought about it before, but that is the old darkroom tech. That they're the darkroom technicians like you did, and that job's going to go. The AI is going to get rid of that job, and I'm talking about not necessarily artistic editing. I think there's always going to be a value of a photographer doing something like I do with my time punk stuff, because it's all decisions that I've made rather than, and there is a value to that. But I'm talking about maybe editing generally, you're just going to have some AI thing do it. And, it's going to make my life as a photographer a lot easier, but unfortunately it's going to cost a lot of jobs. And again, I think where you were saying about legislation against AI, the governments are so far behind it. They are so far behind the tech companies. It's unbelievable. And further behind Further behind that are educators, the institutions.
Oh, yes.
They're massively behind. And that is actually something that I worry about more. I worry about young photographers coming out thinking they've got the skills to make a good dent in the industry, make it a good go. But in actuality, they don't. And this is why people like Denise are there, they're mentoring. And that helps. I
think universities have got a lot to learn from how they're going to move photographers forward into the industry, to make a degree course worth its money, to make it value for money. That what am I going to come out with at the end of the day? And I think one of the things now, there's so many photographers that are doing these degrees and they're coming out with any jobs. And I think one of the things they need to do is they need to tie in with employers. Okay, yes. I think that's absolutely crucial for university degrees to have some sort of validity. I'm going to study photography, but at the end of it, I have got a year's work after that or something.
But how can that be done though?
Employers, because there are still a lot of employers. Like, and I might be wrong here. I might be wrong, but I think some of the TV companies who will look for graduates that finish some media courses.
Yeah, and that's fine if you're a media, right? if you're a media student, that's absolutely fine. But that's not what I had as a course. No. I was photography. I wasn't anything to do with moving image. So for me, those things weren't there. I mean, those things weren't really there when I left uni. I mean, venture were there, but maybe the labs are there, I guess. And there was a lab in local to where I was at the time. But there isn't that. I think it's very difficult for universities to latch onto an employer, because most employers now in the photography industry are people like yourself, people like me. We couldn't take on a whole year. Do you know what I mean? We could take on maybe one person.
Yeah, but I mean, there are still some big companies who are media-based companies that are using photographers. And I think I don't know who these companies are,
but I think that's still a freelance.
But I'm sure, but I think somewhere along the line, universities need to do this to make university degrees valid. Otherwise, people are going to stop. People are going to realise that there's no point in going to university to study photography. Because
I agree.
Denise was saying they can arm them. Yeah, because there are so many, as Denise was saying, there are so many other opportunities that people can learn from now. And she was 100% right. You can go and learn everything from different sources now. You've got all of that. So
and of course, she does have a bit of skin. She has a bit of skin in that game as well, just for transparency, because obviously she is a mentor and that is an income for her. So she is going to, say that, obviously, and I hope she doesn't mind me saying that. But I think you're right. There does need to be more value in the education system. I don't think they could have that employee relationship, because it's not like an engineering degree where you got JLR down the road or something like that who are a big employer. Those big employers don't really exist in photography anymore. I mean, Venture is the only one I can really keep mentioning, and even them, they're franchises. And I was in a team of 3 photographers, so it's not like a big lot of jobs there. Where I do think universities need to up their game is exactly what Denise was saying about the business side. And to be fair, Cam, is what you've been saying for a long time on this podcast, is making sure that people are business savvy, because I certainly wasn't business savvy when I left uni at all. And I fear that a lot of students aren't business savvy either, and that would help get a job, or even create their own job, because I think it is more of a freelance industry now. I just worry that without the experience, like you were saying, you were worried about that, and you said that in the interview, which Denise kind of pushed back on a little bit, I think, with you, didn't she? And that's fine. But I agree. I mean, I made my mistakes working for Venture, which is of course, I made mistakes afterwards, but you make a lot of them when you're green, and I was definitely green when I left uni. And
of course, and I was glad that Denise did say that, because I didn't want to agree with everything she said. I didn't want her to agree with everything we said, because we've all come from different directions and bringing our sort of own thoughts and opinions in all of that, and that's what matters. That debate does actually matter. But no, it's really interesting stuff. Please, guys, get along and listen and watch Denise at the photography show.
Absolutely.
Just to remind you again, she's doing 3 different topics. How it's in capitals do. So it's how do you make money from photography, event photography, and going against the grain, and that's shooting multiple genres. Okay, so she's doing.
And what are those dates again, Cam?
And she's doing 2 talks on the 16th of March, and that is the how do you make money from photography and the event photography. And then on the 17th of March, it's back to the how do you make money from photography. And then on the 18th of March, she's doing going against the grain. Interesting that how do you make money from photography is the topic that she's going to be doing twice.
Absolutely.
That's the one that people are going to be cramming.
So that's the 16th. So how do you make money from photography? 16th of March, 11:50 to 12:20 on the Masterclass Theatre, the Piazza Suite. On the 16th of March, again, she's doing event photography, mastering the big events through the lens, which is at 2:15 to 2:45, and that's on the behind the lens stage. And then on the 17th of March, it's how do you make money from photography again. So 17th of March, and that's at 11:50 to 12:20. And then the last one she's doing, which is going against the grain, shooting multiple genres, which is on the 18th of March, which is starts at 3 o'clock, and that's on the Canon Spotlight stage. So make your way to there, because actually she's got a lot to say, and you'll definitely pick up some good stuff there. Do go check her out.
Good stuff. And remember, we're going to be there, Mark and I, on the 18th. We'll try and catch up with Denise.
Yeah. I just want to say though, Cam, you said we were guests. We're not guests. We're guests, as in we're being shown round something. We're not speaking or anything.
Oh no, we're not speaking. We're not speaking, but we've been invited by Canon to be shown around their stand and to speak to the people on the Canon stand and their speakers that they've got as well. So that's really good and very, very kind and appreciated from Canon to give us that access that we were looking forward to. Okay, so Mark, do you want to give a shout out to the Patreons?
Yes, I would love to. So we got Carl Sherville. I got your name right today, Carl. Yay! And we got Amara Zainab and Nick Payne, and we have a new one. So, Mr. Rob Percy, thank you very much for joining our illustrious patrons. Thank you very much.
Good stuff. Thank you, guys, and we will see you next time.
Yes, will do. Bye for now.
Cheers.